Throughout the early 17th century, Sweden had fought a number of long and costly wars against its neighbours, Poland, Denmark-Norway and Russia. They had won a great deal of land and more power, but had spent a great deal of money in these long wars. So Sweden, under the young Charles XI, formed alliances in exchange for subsidies. As such, in the 1660s they joined the Dutch in an anti-French alliance, which ended Louis XIV's expansionist War of Devolution. But after the war, Louis wanted to isolate the Dutch and attack them, so he promised Sweden a great deal of money in return for neutrality in this future war. And Louis also wanted to stop Brandenburg from helping the Dutch. So French subsidies would be raised if Sweden increased its army to around 25,000 men and prepared itself to fight Brandenburg if needed. The Franco-Dutch War erupted in 1672, and initially the French were successful in invading the Netherlands. But the Dutch halted their advance and got support from Spain, Austria, Brandenburg under Frederick William, and a collection of small German states within the Holy Roman Empire. And France's main ally, England, withdrew from the war in early 1674, when public opinion turned against a prolonged war alongside the French. So in late 1674, Sweden upheld their part of the treaty and went to war with Brandenburg. Under Wrangel, the Swedes met the Brandenburg forces at the Battle of Fehrbellin in June, but were defeated by the smaller force. Sensing Sweden's vulnerability, Christian V of Denmark-Norway joined in the war against them, hoping to reclaim lost territory. The Allied forces then attacked Bremen-Verden, where Sweden's army was mainly made up of Germans, and they began to desert. So by the end of 1675 the Swedish had lost most towns except Stade, which held out until the summer of 1676, and the Allies were making similar gains in Swedish Pomerania, and the Swedes retreated to Stettin and Stralsund. To the north, the Norwegians had put together a small army and engaged in small skirmishes with the Swedes along the border, but the Swedes were mainly preoccupied with the Danish, who were making attempts at retaking Scania. In early June 1676, a Dutch and Danish fleet crushed the Swedish navy at Åland, allowing the Danes to send 15,000 troops to capture Helsingborg later that month. Many of the locals who were Danish sided with the invasion forces, and the outnumbered and overstretched Swedes were forced back to Malmö within a month. The Danes then proceeded north along the west coast, hoping to take Halmstad, and there they would meet up with the Norwegians under Gildenlov, who had proceeded south. But Charles XI successfully defeated the Danes at the Battle of Halmstad in August before the campaigning stopped for the winter. During the winter, the Norwegians rapidly increased their size of their army to over 15,000 men, and with this force they were able to take Bohuslän and repulse a Swedish counterattack. And in August they also successfully occupied Jämtland, so the Norwegians had successfully reoccupied land that they had lost to the Swedish. And the Swedish also faced another setback in June, as their navy was once again defeated. But Charles XI led his armies into Scania in October, and in December decisively beat the Danes at the Battle of Lund, allowing them to go on the offensive. In June 1677 they again defeated the Danes at Landskrona, but yet another naval defeat the next month meant they couldn't ship troops to Germany. Instead they besieged the remaining Danish garrisons in Scania, while in Pomerania, Stralsund fell in October 1678 to the Allies. However, by now the French had made peace with the Dutch and Holy Roman Empire, and were free to aid their ally, and they began to move their armies east. So Denmark, unwilling to fight France in a war, made peace, and besides some very small exceptions, all land they had taken from Sweden during the war was handed back. The Swedish diplomat at the negotiations was Gyllenstierna, and he was opposed to a French alliance. In fact, he wanted to end hostilities with his neighbours in Scandinavia, and organised Charles XI's marriage to Christian V of Denmark's sister. But this attempted alliance broke down as soon as he died, and the Scandinavian countries would again be at war in 1700.